the left has kind of ceded ground and surrendered the idea of self-help content to the right wing. I think one of the main reasons why a lot of leftists bristle at some of the commentary on, oh, the left needs to give better advice to young men, or the left should have more accounts giving advice to young men, and, you know, not treat them as inherently evil or whatever. A lot of people might bristle at those because those critiques are seen as inherently right-wing. And I experience this myself when I talk about it. So I've struggled with depression, ADHD, essentially for as long as I can remember. And I talk a lot about my self-discipline journey, my personal responsibility journey, if you want to call it that, of building up a routine for myself in order to counteract the negative aspects of my ADHD. Whenever I talk about this, every single goddamn time, people are immediately jumping to, oh, you're talking about self-help? You're talking about self-discipline? Jordan Peterson. Why is that? Why is that your immediate thought? Self-help is not inherently political. Wash your penis is not a political statement. But for some reason, these memes on the left have kind of infected people's minds to the point where if somebody on the left is operating in good faith, gives that advice, you're like, oh my God, what is this right-wing bullshit? And it's ridiculous. Why would you cede that ground? So as always, I'm super late to this discourse, but actually I'm not. I actually was talking about a lot of this drama that we were all embroiled in for at least the last year, several times even. We're talking about men today, and I know, I get it, it's a little scary. You know, some people don't even think men exist. I am of the opinion that I've never seen a man in existence. Possible, it's a fiction, it's a myth, made up, I don't know. But that's what we're talking about today. There's been a lot of tweets that have been popping off lately in our little corner of the internet, and it's been a lot of discourse, and all of it, frankly, has been really bad. There was a tweet from a person on Twitter, it goes by the name of Sid something, I think, I don't know, where they said something along the lines of one of the reasons why so many young men flock to men's rights YouTubers and right-wingers and reactionaries is because the left gives, and I quote, brain-dead advice to men and yada yada yada. And I do think that that specific tweet was probably phrased too incendiarily, especially for how sensitive a lot of people on the left can be. I'm not the most sensitive to it. I'm kind of bombastic myself, but given the topic, it's a choice, and I don't think it was necessarily the best one. It is what it is. It spawned a bunch of different discourse. People like Vaush got in on it. Even Hassan talked about it a little bit on his YouTube channel. I don't think as much on his Twitter. Anyway, so like the basic take seems to be like self-help YouTubers seem to trend toward the right in their politics. And a lot of really big ones like Jordan Peterson or Andrew Tate or even like Ben Shapiro will talk about stuff like this. A lot of these people seem to trend right wing, and then because of that, a lot of their fans who come to them, like primarily because they were interested in the self-help stuff at first, end up becoming right wing and reactionary down the line. I've been talking about it for a long time. I actually went through the effort of looking into my YouTube history. And just over the last year, I have posted 8 videos about this topic to an extent. Most of these are me dunking on YouTubers talking about self-help, self-discipline, self-betterment, and all this kind of stuff. I've been ahead of the curve on this discourse for a long time because I think it's very important. As a trans femme myself, I did grow up socialized as a man, you know, and all of that. And I know a lot about what goes into that. Me being 5'4", I was a manlet. You know, my height works to my advantage now being a femme person because we live in a society. I know a lot about it. And this is a similar experience that a lot of trans femme people will have, that they can actually sympathize with a lot of the understandable problems that young men might have, like difficulties making friends or finding romantic relationships or all this kind of stuff that everybody deals with. But obviously, in this case, we're talking about young men, especially considering there's a whole cottage industry of right-wingers that do this. And my take has always been this. The idea of self-help and self-discipline, self-improvement, is an inherently leftist idea, to the point where if somebody's trying to weaponize that for right-wing politics, to push right-wing politics, they actually have to contradict themselves in a variety of ways, or twist what it means to better oneself, to even make their style of content work. And to me, it's kind of simple. Like, how can you, as, in this case, a leftist, organize in your community and work to better the lives of everybody else if you're simultaneously having difficulty keeping yourself in order? It's hard to be, you know, that kind of revolutionary, that kind of person going out, doing mutual aid, doing like labor militancy and all this kind of stuff in your own communities if you're having difficulty living your own life, getting out of bed, keeping your house in order when it comes to your hygiene, your own personal hygiene, even making friends and getting better at being social. All of this stuff helps you be a better leftist. It helps you be a better organizer. It helps you be a better activist. It can even help you be a better politician if you want to get into that realm. It's very helpful in general, and it just helps you live a better life. And not only does it help you live a better life, it also helps you live a better life, and in turn will help the people around you that you directly interface with have a good life as well. If you're really good at doing chores, and you live with other people who are not as good at doing those chores, you could do the chores for them as a kindness because you're a nice person, right? Like, if you're really good at doing the dishes and your roommate isn't, but your roommate's like really good at vacuuming or sweeping, well, then now you've got from each according to their ability to each according to their need. You know what I mean? This is very helpful, and it's really good for keeping the house in order, keeping everybody good and ready to go in your community. And that obviously is going to extend out to different parts of your community. It doesn't have to stay within the home either. It's all really good. That's my basic take. Now, to go into this a little bit more, right-wingers seem to have understood that they can weaponize the aesthetics of self-help content in order to push their right-wing ideas, their right-wing ideology. And they've been massively successful. So the bigger examples of the modern day are people like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate. These people position themselves as these self-help gurus, these men that really know how to clean their room and wash their penis, you know what I mean? And that's going to make them better people and blah, 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 blah. But then they also sprinkle in a little bit of right-wing politics. The basic idea here is that the primary people that are going to be seeking out self-help content, especially in this case, if it's self-help content for men, it's going to be insecure young men or insecure men in general. You kind of have to be a bit insecure in your standing if you're looking for this kind of content for help. Ideally, you would have people in your life that would be able to help you with this, like friends and family members, but not everybody does, and people are having difficulty even making friends and keeping them and all this kind of stuff nowadays anyway. So a lot of people will turn to people on YouTube and online in order to fill that void. A lot of people will use media that they watch, like TV shows and movies, to fill in that void as well. And what the right wing has understood is that you can take this population of emotionally vulnerable and insecure men and hook them in to trusting you if you give them essentially common sense at this point, very bog standard advice that you could find from literally any self-help publication. Like, have a routine, have a schedule, work out, eat better, make your bed, clean your room bucko, right? All this kind of stuff is generally good advice. So if like somebody happens across a Jordan Peterson video, they take that advice and then it works for them and they see their life actually improve, they're going to connect their life improving to getting that advice from Jordan Peterson, even though they could have gotten it from anybody else. But because they got it specifically from Jordan Peterson, now they trust Jordan Peterson. They're kind of looking for father figures in that way, is what a lot of people will say. Now they trust Jordan Peterson, and the byproduct of that is that they'll trust Jordan Peterson not only just for his self-help critiques, but also things beyond that. And that's when you get into a little bit of trouble, right? That's when you'll start to get into people unquestionably agreeing with his political takes, which are garbage, which are dog shit, as I've talked about in a lot of these videos. They'll start to trust people like Jordan Peterson, Andrew Tate, Ben Shapiro, whatever else, about takes outside of the self-help realm, and this is a very common tactic. I was watching Chariot's video. We'll link that in the description so you can go watch it as well. Chariot recently put out a video, and the things that she was talking about when it comes to the insecure men and their mentality and how even like cults will try to indoctrinate people preying on that insecurity, it's a very effective way to do it historically. And that's what is at play here. So once people are hooked into Jordan Peterson in that way, then they start hearing his right-wing takes about how the world should be and yada, yada, yada. Another big problem that I've talked about when it comes to this is the idea of individual responsibility or personal responsibility, right? The bootstrap stuff, you know, the clean your room bucko memes, the pull yourself up by your bootstraps memes that we all know and love and like to make fun of on the left. This kind of rhetoric, this kind of rugged individualism that people like Jordan Peterson push is, in my view, pushed with a purpose. And I talk about this, I think, specifically in Why the Left is Wrong About Self-Discipline, this video, featuring Ben Shapiro, who's also wrong, where they do all that I just said to hook people in, And then they start telling people that, oh, well, you could make the world and the society you live in better simply by making yourself better, which is ludicrous. The idea that a single person, having a routine and going and exercising regularly is suddenly going to make the world a better place, that's not how that works. You might live a better life, and if your worldview entirely revolves around yourself, then maybe it'll feel like you've made the world a better place, but that's not actually how that works. The big problem that you'll run into if you're somebody like Jordan Peterson is that you have to lie in order to sell this idea, because no problems that are ailing people in our society can be fixed by individual change. Any leftist should know this. You need systemic changes to the problems in our system in order to do that. So what right-wingers like Jordan Peterson do is they weaponize self-help content in order to hook in vulnerable men, usually, and then they will use the trust they've gained from that to push right-wing ideology and in turn push rugged individualism and get people to the point where they think that all they need to do is make their own lives as good as possible, make as much money as they can, like Andrew Tate says, like make their own physical fitness as good as possible, blah, 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 and suddenly the world will fix itself, which is ludicrous. But that's the point. If these people understood that systemic changes were necessary, like systemic change to our healthcare system so that you don't go bankrupt if you can't afford a doctor and you get sick, systemic changes to the housing market and the decommodification of housing so that people don't have to struggle to keep a roof over their head, a systemic change to distribution of food so that even though we have an abundance of food, people aren't going hungry anymore, systemic changes to the public education system and higher education so that people don't go into debt because they want to get a higher education, get a good degree to get a good paying job, systemic change to even trade schooling so that people who want to go into trades can do so without having to pay through the nose for it either. All of these things cannot be changed by the individual. They have to be changed through systemic actions, and the only way that that's going to be brought about is by everybody collectively getting together and pressuring the people that are in charge of all these systemic changes, the politicians, the wealthy capital owners that donate to them, and the corporations that are essentially, 17 corporations in a trench coat or whatever, into actually putting forward policy and codifying into law a variety of programs that we've seen work in other civilized nations that makes it so that people don't go into bankruptcy for medical bills, that people can't even get paid to go to school because those countries understand that higher education is an investment, right? All of these things would help everybody's lives. There's only so much an individual can do to better their own life if there's a systemic boot on your neck. You can only do so much when it comes to your routine, your physical health, your hygiene. There's only so much that's going to help until you can't get past the hurdle that is medical bankruptcy. That is not being able to get a job because you can't get a higher education. That is not being able to get paid good wages because labor militancy doesn't exist because it's been systemically eradicated. Thank you, Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan. Rest in peace, you will not be missed. It'll only take you so far, and that's what the right-wingers like Jordan Peterson are banking on. They want to get you in there to support right-wing politics that are literally antithetical to your life getting better, to distract you and bring you away from actual leftist critiques and policies that would make your lives better and the lives of everybody else. It's a big problem. Very clearly, there is a common thread here, and that it's a tactic. The tactic of weaponizing self-help content online, on TV, on the radio, in media, in order to push a political narrative. Now, ideally, you wouldn't have to do that. I agree. I believe Chariot was talking about in her video about how it would probably be better if you're trying to give people your political opinions and whatnot to not have to hide it within your self-help content. I am sympathetic to that idea, but in the current system we live in, the right wing has been doing this already for a long time and have been massively successful in it. So I think if more people on the left could do it, that would be pretty good. If there were people on the left that focused primarily on self-help content, and I'm sure they exist, though unfortunately I don't think they're of substantial size, and this is coming from me, a whomegalol, a no-name, certainly not as big as people like Andrew Tate or Jordan Peterson, and of course they have, systemic backing from billionaires that are funding them, blah, blah, blah. We can get into that. It's difficult to do. But I think more people doing it would be helpful. If you could do self-help content and also some politics stuff on the side, it could be really good. What I like to connect it to a lot of the time is labor militancy. Like this video, Femboy explains why today's men are so weak, responding to Alpha M, or the Femboy explains why modern men are so submissive. I get into how very masculine archetypes of men back in the day were literally union men. They were militant in their labor advocacy, and as it pertains to the Battle of Blair Mountain, literally shed blood fighting the state and strikebreakers in order to get the money that they were owed for their labor, right? If the main fantasy from men, young men especially, is to like go out to defend something that you believe in so strongly, like your family, like your friends, like your country or whatever, your community, labor militancy is kind of that. And I think you could draw that parallel, like I have, very effectively. If you could take self-help, right? Bettering yourself, bettering the lives of the people around you, and extend that out in some way to labor militancy, to unionization in your workplace, to democratizing your workplace, I think that could be profoundly effective. It's almost apolitical as well. It's not, obviously, but it's like, it's almost bipartisan, right? Because even if Republicans and right-wingers have been lied to their entire lives about how, oh my God, the unions, they just take your money and you get nothing for it, which is obviously bullshit. If the union does get implemented, they benefit from it anyway. There is a lot you can do with that idea. But herein comes another problem with the fact that this is a tactic. The fact that this is a tactic entails certain things that are going to be beneficial to that tactic and certain things that are not. So if I was to talk about all this kind of stuff, and the main group of people I'm trying to appeal to is, in this case, young men, but young people generally, about all this kind of self-help stuff, I don't know that I'm going to be the most trustworthy person to them because I'm a trans femme, right? I'm a trans person. I'm trans feminine. They'd probably, you know, if they're like even right-leaning because of their home life and the politics of their parents that have been impressed upon them, it's going to be harder to take somebody like me seriously than, say, a more masculine person like Hassan or Vosh, right? These people, while I might be like masculine in my personality, I am certainly not masculine in aesthetics. And that seems to be a common thread with the right-wing self-help people as well. Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate, they're not actually masculine. All of these are like little twinks that are, you know, giving me a little bit of questions, a little bit fruity. The way that they present themselves is very masculine, right? So if somebody in presentation is more masculine, those people might be inherently trustworthy, right? Because we live in a patriarchal system, these are just kind of the ideas that are floating around and impressed upon people, even subconsciously, which is unfortunate, but that's the problem that I run into. I don't know that I'm going to be taken the most seriously when I make these kinds of videos. They seem to be effective and people seem to like them for the people that are going to watch me. And there are a lot of people that watch them because I'm dunking on, you know, Hamza or Alpha M, or Ben Shapiro, or Jordan Peterson, or whatever, that will watch them and, you know, maybe become more sympathetic to my views or whatever, but I'm not really the archetype that's going to be the most effective, I don't think. So that's why people like Hassan and Vosh are very good, in my opinion, when they talk about the kind of advice for young men. Hassan for a long time, and he does every now and again, though he does talk about it relatively regularly on his live streams, just not as like the formal Chad Vice thing. He did the Chad Vice thing for a while, does every now and again, and it's really cool. People call in. It's not just for men, but it's going to be a lot of men's issues coming in, and obviously that's going to be Hassan's forte because he was a young man once, and now, of course, he's a 70-year-old decrepit boomer, but he's very aware of that whole vibe. He's also very into physical fitness and all this kind of stuff, so he's a very effective archetype of a person to be able to do that. It's the same for Vosh. Vosh is also a more masculine person who has a lot of that lived experience of being a younger man and understanding all of this, and is in the archetype of a person that is more masculine, and therefore people are going to be more receptive to him, and yada yada. And both of these people do a lot of this kind of content. There's a lot of videos on either of their channels talking about, oh, here's advice for how to do X or advice for how to do Y. It might be difficult to find those videos because they're usually wrapped up into broader political critique, though not always. So the titles might be a bit more difficult to find or a bit more nebulous or kind of seem not really relevant, but they do exist because I've watched both of these creators for a long time. And I think more people doing that would be really good. I know that there are more, but I would like to see more. So obviously, Shark300, friend of the show, my good buddy, who I'm a big fan of, talks a lot about men's issues in a positive, progressive, and left-wing capacity. Shark Pog, I'm sure Xanderhall also does. There's a fair amount of people that talk about it, but it would be cool if we had more. I think a big problem that we run into specifically, everybody that I just talked about, is that we also do overtly political content. Right? People like Jordan Peterson also do, and people like Andrew Tate also do, but they have this like veneer of apoliticism that they've built for themselves. Like Jordan Peterson pretends to be a centrist of some sort and pretends to be like disaffected with the liberals or whatever. And I think that works to their benefit. Same for like somebody like Joe Rogan, you know? Even though he is fairly right-wing, though he seems to be very amoebic in his beliefs, kind of just believes whatever the last person he talked to believed, it's a little bit easier for them to kind of parlay that self-help content that should theoretically be apolitical. It should be pretty easy to make that apolitical. You know, wash your penis. It's not a very political statement. But the problem with everybody that I just talked about, we talk about politics overtly. That is a major fixture of our content, and because of that, it's going to be more difficult to actually get people to listen to us about the self-help stuff, because they're going to see the political stuff that we talk about outside of that and be turned off from it because they're fucking triggered bitch babies, right? They're going to be like, oh my god, that Hassan fellow, that soy boy, that millionaire that's not actually living his values, I can't. So what I mean to say is it would be really helpful if we had, like, as apolitical as you can get, left-wingers talking and making the majority of their content about self-help related topics, and then kind of drop some more of their politics into it over time, which is what Jordan Peterson did, which is what Andrew Tate does, right? Though I think Jordan Peterson is more methodical in that way, and Andrew Tate is like a fucking idiot. But anyway, and that's why this video is here. The Are Debate Bros a Problem for the Left video, which I think is really good, that I put out 10 months ago when that whole discourse was up. So it's like I talked about in this video, it is a diversity of tactics, right? Apolitical content can be very helpful to pushing your political ideology. Clearly, a big part of Gamergate was so-called apolitical gamer bros who had worries about ethics and games journalism, quote unquote, 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 who weaponized their air of apoliticism to those young men, usually in the gamer sphere, especially at the time. That's the primary market because it's kind of been carved out as that market, even though literally anybody plays video games, whatever. That kind of apolitical content is really good at getting people on board to your political ideology. So some of the people that I talk about in this way are Jim Stephanie Sterling. Though in the past, she was doing more like pointed apolitical video game review type content, talking about the industry as well. I think now she's a little bit more overtly political. But I mean, you have that clout. That's a good way to get people in. Who else do I put in here? Oh, Anthony Fantano, another really good one. The Melon Man himself, who I recently discovered is an oomphie of mine on Twitter. That's how you know I'm cool and have good music taste. He is really good in that he is a fairly left-wing progressive person, but his politics don't really seep into his content that much. He reviews the albums and whatnot on his main channel, The Needle Drop, and on Fantano, that's where he might get a little bit political, but only if it's relevant to the music industry or the topic at hand. It's not usually like, here, I'm going to do a video debunking Ben Shapiro. That's not usually what's going to be the case. But he will talk about politics sometimes, but more often than not, he's not. And what's really useful here is that people will start to follow him, not knowing that he is a fairly left-wing progressive person, and then through him, they will find a variety of actually forthcoming, like, people who do overt political content. They'll see signal boosted from his account, and that could bring them further and further into the left, the kind of onboarding that I'm talking about, right? Those kinds of people are very, very helpful, and I see no reason why self-help kind of content can't also fill a similar niche. You got this big muscle guy, you got this fit muscle girl that's talking all this self-help kind of physical fitness stuff that then signal boosts people who do more overt left-wing content online, and it just brings more people into that, and they can get further educated on those beliefs. They might become further and further to the left, and blah, blah, blah. It's an important part of the diversity of tactics that is involved in online content creation, which is the realm we're talking about right now. It's very helpful. I think it could be very good. I just don't think I'm the person to do it. I'm still going to try, clearly, you know. Having 8 videos going over the subject over the last year, I think is a testament to that. I could do more, sure. I just don't think I'm the vessel. So that's the brief synopsis, I guess, of the broader points I like to talk about. In summary, self-help stuff is a tactic. Giving advice to young men is a tactic that you can use to try to get people into your broader political beliefs. And we know that this is an effective tactic because the right has been using it effectively for a long time. And I think that should be the main critique. So now I have some broader problems that I'd like to talk about, specific to the left, when it comes to this issue. And that is one that I think I talk about in the Why the Left is Wrong About Self-Discipline featuring Ben Shapiro, who's also wrong. This video, it seems like, for some reason, the left has kind of ceded ground and kind of surrendered the idea of self-help content to the right wing. I think one of the main reasons why a lot of leftists bristle at some of the commentary on, oh, the left needs to give better advice to young men, or the left should have more accounts giving advice to young men and, you know, not treat them as inherently evil or whatever. A lot of people might bristle at those, probably in large part because when those things are said, they might be more incendiary, but also because those critiques are seen as inherently right-wing. For some reason, the left is like, okay, and I experienced this myself when I talk about it. So I've struggled with depression, ADHD, essentially for as long as I can remember, and I still do. And I talk about a lot about my self-discipline journey, my personal responsibility journey, if you want to call it that, of building up a routine for myself in order to counteract the negative aspects of my ADHD, actually be able to get my chores done, actually able to get my exercise in, actually be able to have a good diet and all this kind of shit, keep myself healthy, you know, physically fit, feeling good. Whenever I talk about this shit, every single goddamn time, it's like Jordan Peterson, clean your room, bucko, clean your room, bucko. That's what I hear from people on the left. People are immediately jumping to, oh, you're talking about self-help? You're talking about self-discipline? Jordan Peterson. Why is that? Why is that your immediate thought? Self-help is not inherently political. Wash your penis is not a political statement. But for some reason, these memes on the left have kind of infected people's minds to the point where if somebody on the left, who you should assume is operating in good faith, gives similar advice, because like I say, Jordan Peterson is not giving novel advice. This is advice you could hear from literally anybody who does self-help shit. He just happens to be a right-winger weaponizing it. As soon as anybody you assume to be operating in good faith, a leftist, gives that advice, you're like, oh my God, you're like Jordan Peterson. What is this right-wing bullshit? And it's ridiculous. Why would you cede that ground? Like, I don't understand it. And this is not, obviously, I'm going to have to talk in generalities here. I don't have specific people I care to put on blast right now. I'm talking generally, so if you're listening to this and you have not reacted in that way, clearly I'm not talking about you, all right? You know, don't get all upset about it. It's a problem that I see, and I think it's part of the reason why when people talk about, oh, it would be helpful if more people on the left did self-help type content and tried to give good advice to all young people, but specifically young men, because they seem to be a demographic that's able to be weaponized into political advocacy very effectively by the right. Why can't the left do that? If that kind of critique gets given, or that kind of like advice gives given, people immediately read it as right-wing, and then the entire discourse falls apart. As you can clearly see, if you've been following on Twitter, it immediately falls apart. And it's annoying because it shouldn't be that way, right? How can you successfully organize in your community, attempt to democratize your workplace, be militant in your labor, mount a fucking revolution in the nation state that you live in, if you do not have good fundamental understandings of self-help and self-improvement and self-discipline? It's like, it's not possible. Discipline is a necessary aspect of a lot of the things that leftists want to get done in this country and across the world. It is a necessary thing. That's not to say that this is all bootstraps rhetoric, because when I talk about self-discipline, I look at it through a leftist lens. I talk about labor militancy. I talk about doing direct action and trying to pressure the powers that be into getting the systemic changes we need. I talk about the mutual aid that you should be doing in order to help the people in your immediate community and have an immediate impact. I talk about this all the goddamn fucking time through a leftist lens. There's no reason why you should immediately see that and be like, oh, that's right wing. It doesn't make any sense. So I just think it's a major misstep to kind of surrender that self-help kind of content to the right to the point where that's like the immediate association. Because obviously that's beneficial to the right. If the right's weaponizing it in order to push people into rugged individualism, which is actually antithetical to them getting the things needed, like the systemic changes we need to benefit everybody's lives and their own, then why are you helping them in that way, I guess? We need to be operating as a counter to that and give people an alternative pathway in that realm. I think a lot of this, a lot of the problems here are also because we're talking about young men and men's issues in general, which unfortunately there are some on the left that are not the most excited to ever talk about men in a positive light, which is cringe and annoying because we all love when there's a positive representation of masculinity in media, or, a story about it. Like, Alec Gunter, friend of the show, the trans shirt guy, the cis dude who talked at a school board meeting and was trying to argue in favor of trans people and trans students, weaponizing the fact that he is a cis man in order to further progressive causes and protect marginalized communities. People fucking love when people do that. People love when masculinity is used and seen in a progressive light. So why is it that we are going to immediately bristle at, talk about men's issues? If we want more Alec Gunters in the world, we're going to have to provide a pathway for more of them to come into existence. It's kind of important, I think. And I guess to cap this off, to give you drama frogs, you fiends, a little bit more of what you're excited about. So I'm going to say this up front. If ever there's a small account that I'm talking about on this platform, if it's brought to my attention that you are harassing this person in their comments or whatever, obviously providing fine critique As long as you're operating in good faith and you're not being vitriolic about it, or like being offensive about it, that's fine. But like if you're literally like going out and, you know, telling people to Roblox or whatever, like fuck off. If I see that happening from my community, I will discipline you everywhere that I can in my community. But I don't really care about this account at all because it's just a smaller account talking some dumb shit. But this is a common thread. So this is actually a kind of a popular post format recently. A lot of people have made similar ones. This one happens to have 16.9. That's the sex number. Likes. It's a lot of likes. There's a Vouch video that says, how the left helped make Andrew Tate popular. This person says, this guy sucks so bad. And there are so many tweets of similar engagement with this, you know, essentially judging a book by its cover kind of problem. And this is a consistent thing that I've seen. So people are asking, have you watched the video? And they respond, I'm old and know more than him, so no. So you can immediately like toss this person's opinions out. They're meaningless because they're not actually arguing for anything. They're getting mad at the YouTube title and thumbnail of a YouTube video that they have not watched. Now, it's a 45-minute long or 50-minute video. I wouldn't expect you to watch it all, but maybe listen to the people who have watched the video and try to formulate your opinion on it from that if you're not going to watch it yourself, instead of doing this, because this is just embarrassing. Like, it's just this obstinance. It's like, it's very reminiscent of the kind of anti-empiricism that I deal with arguing against transphobes online, where there will be a bunch of transphobes coming at me with a bunch of bullshit statistics that have been debunked. And then I offer them actual studies that the majority of medical professionals agree with. And they're just like, nope, I pretend I do not see it. Na boo boo. I don't see it, blah, blah, blah. This is the kind of vibe that I'm getting here, because I've dealt with that a lot online and a lot of the pro-trans advocacy that I've done. So it seems like their primary critique seems to be disagreeing that the left had anything to do with Andrew Tate becoming more popular. But because these people didn't watch the video, I did. And if you've agreed with any of the takes that I've made in the 45 unedited minute runtime of this video that I've been recording right now, you have agreed with a lot of Vosh's points as well. And it's not to say that I got them from him, because like I showed you before, I have been talking about this on my own channel for over the past year, 8 videos, and a variety of times on my stream that don't get made into videos. Anybody in my community could tell you this. If you've agreed with anything I've said in this video, you've agreed with a variety of things Vosh has said in his video. I could tell you that right now, because I've watched the video and you haven't. And if you have, then good for you. And if you're giving good critique from it, then fuck yeah, I don't give a shit if we disagree, as long as you're not being like this. Like, what is this? Watch the video, lil bro. I'm older than you. And then he also said, I'm older than Vosh, so I know better than him, so I didn't watch the video because I don't have to. This is just conservative shit, man. This is conservative rhetoric, right? I hear this shit from conservatives all the goddamn time, and this person's supposed to be a leftist? I don't actually know, but that seems to be the impression we're getting. And it seems to be, you know, a concept reciprocated by a variety of other people on the left, which we'll get into. What is this? I'm not even a huge Vosh fan, but come on, Lamau, stop reacting to an obvious clickbait title. It's not even clickbait, by the way. The title is actually justified by the content if you watch it. But no YouTuber can survive on this platform without trying to get people to click on their content. That's kind of how it works. That's not what clickbait is. Clickbait means you're lying in the title and in the thumbnail to try to get people to click, and then what they're getting in the content of the actual video isn't relevant to the title or thumbnail, then your click has been baited. But if the title, even if it is like an attention-grabbing title, if it is justified by the content in the video, I do this all the time, that's just being a YouTuber and trying to be effective in the space. And watch the video because he actually made some useful points. It'd be awesome if the left didn't spend so much time fighting within itself for no reason at all. True. His fault, not mine. What does that even mean? His fault for making an hour-long video about real problems the left faces and you seeing the thumbnail and saying, wow, this guy sucks so much, without watching a single second. Can't whine about me reacting to the clickbait title he made. This isn't how that works. Whatever that means, dude. It's literally about the title and about the person who it's coming from. All right. And I guess we'll get into this now because, you know, I'm done with this. So, of course, somebody who actually makes really good video essays on YouTube, Sean, who seems to have difficulty on Twitter, unfortunately, decided to vague tweet about it all. He says, got no time for ostensible leftists who sit on the sidelines declaring, quote, the left should be doing this or focusing on that. If you're part of the left, get on it. So implicit in this is the assumption that, I guess in this case, Vosh isn't doing that. Because as somebody who's watched him for a long time, he has. And that he's not the only one. Like Hassan has as well. As somebody who's watched Hassan for a long time, he has as well. Shark has as well. There's a lot of them. But it would be useful if we had more, and it would be useful, in my view, if we had more apolitical people who did it as well. Or more apolitical content creators, I guess, that did it as well. So this is a nothing post. The idea that there's some hierarchy you can send your complaints to the top of to enact change doesn't strike me as very leftist. There's no bosses here, you just do it. This is a nothing tweet, but it provided me a good launch pad to talk my shit. I wrote, what if I told you one can call for more of X while also doing X? In this case, making content that appeals to young men in the realm of self-help. If they're already doing it, they should be aware if more of it needs doing, and clearly they think that, and are trying to raise awareness of that so more people do it. Clearly. How could somebody have the opinion that there should be more of something happening if they aren't already engaging with that thing they think should be happening more? I think that's a reasonable assumption you could make. If you actually look at the video catalog, that would become true. No leftist would think that just their effort is enough. This is, I think, the major point. Implicit in this idea, in his second tweet, that the idea that there's some hierarchy you can send your complaints to the top of to enact change doesn't strike me as very leftist. There's no bosses here, you just do it. But also, a single person giving this critique should be enough to do it? Surely not. Surely you'd need more than one content creator doing it, which is why we're calling for more content creators to do it, you see. I feel like that makes sense. Evidently not. The idea that any leftist would think that just their individual effort on their own is going to be enough to solve a systemic issue, they're not a leftist at that point. Because that's not how that works. That's what the right-wingers who do the self-help content kind of try to sell, that, oh, you just better yourself and the world will become better. It's not how that works. No leftist should misunderstand that. It's just annoying, man. It really does seem like, and you can call me a meat rider or whatever, blah, 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 blah. If I get all my opinions from the guy because I'm friends with him or whatever. It's kind of weird for a leftist to, say that to me, though, so I hope that's not what you're saying out there. I've been talking about this for a long time. It just seems to be the case that they didn't like who it was coming from. Vosh was one of the bigger creators to talk about it, and because they don't like Vosh for a variety of reasons, most of which, in my view, are unfounded, then it's completely irrelevant, and they already see him as a right-winger, and because they seem to connect self-help content and any calls for more self-help content, but through a leftist lens, as being inherently right-wing, then suddenly it's all right-wing, and you can completely disregard it, and I'm older than you, so I know more. That kind of shit, it's just not helpful, man, and it's disappointing. Because, I feel like I've laid out the case, I guess. If I'm to say more, I'm just, reiterating everything. It's just unfortunate. And I will continue to talk about all the shit I've been talking about, and I will continue to advocate for a better world for everybody, in this case, specifically men and young men, as I did in the videos that I referenced before that I've made. But it's just disappointing. It would be one thing if we were arguing about tactics and oh, well, you say that using self-help content in a kind of an apolitical way, if we could get more people to do that, and then maybe use that as an entry point to getting people to look at more overtly political content on the left, and that would move them through a kind of a pipeline. Maybe I don't think that would work because maybe there's this kind of thing that would conflict with that, and maybe there could be a different way to do that. Would actually be a conversation. But vague tweets like this, and saying, no, I didn't watch it because, I just saw the title. I don't read articles past the headline. So, I just disagree with it because I'm older and I know, but that's bullshit. It's garbage. That's not going to help anybody. And that's antithetical to actual good leftist advocacy. Because we need cohesion in this space because we are an ultra minority of political opinions in the broader context of the media landscape that we inhabit and the world. Leftists, not the majority. Not even the median, a minority of political opinions. We kind of have to work together, and if we don't, we're not getting anywhere. Anyway, Vosh has years of arguing to support feminism, trans rights, every other leftist cause, but people can't accept his edgy humor because he's not visibly queer enough. Yeah, it's true. He needs to release the dick-sucking tapes. It's time. It's time. He needs to get a septum ring. It's time. Anyway, get me out of here. I feel like if I keep going, I'm going to be talking about the same shit over and over again. This video's Conure Callout is another dual Conure callout because the holidays got my schedule all fucked up. The winners are Asphodel, longtime chatter, very respected, and Second Chance, a new winner. Congratulations to both of you. Hope you both continue to enjoy the content. If you would like to be the next Conure callout, all you can do is follow me on Twitter. It's very simple. Reach me by video links when they go live. Same thing as always is. It's very, very... Do it. Also, remember to like the video, comment something down below about how diversity of tactics is poggers, actually. Subscribe and hit the bell, and tell your loved ones that you love them. And have a great day. Okay?